When you're told by members of Congress that they're losing, they're going to lose the House and the Senate if he stays on the ticket. When you're told by members of Congress who have seen the polls that you're losing swing states and that your numbers are going down in swing states, in states like Virginia, New Hampshire, New Mexico, Minnesota are now in play. And when your top fundraiser over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years is telling you the money's gone, the donors have all gone away, you know, it's really incumbent on people that are around Joe Biden to step up at this point and help the president and help the man they love and do the right thing. This is not going to end well if it continues to drag out.
Well, as Joe Scarborough just acknowledged, Joe Biden is facing massive pressure to drop out of the presidential race and allow for a more competitive Democrat to run against Donald Trump. In fact, the highest ranking Democratic officials in his own party, I'm talking about Democratic leadership like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, they've met with him and they have urged him to drop out. And apparently that pressure is working to some extent. There are some cracks in his defiance, if you will. So this morning, Axios reported that behind the curtain, top Dems now believe Biden will exit. There are some reports that he could exit the race as soon as Sunday, meaning this weekend. Now, thus far, Biden has not budged an inch on dropping out of the race publicly. So what he thinks privately might be completely different from the brave face he's putting on publicly. However, Axios reports that privately he's resigned to mounting pressure, bad polls, and untenable scrutiny, making it impossible to continue his campaign. An anonymous senior Democratic advisor told CNN that Biden's gone from saying Kamala can't win to, do you think Kamala can win? It's still unclear where he's going to land, but he at least seems to be listening. He's been listening.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
So guys, you've heard me say now that it's over for a while, and it was over after the debate. And remember, I thought that he was not the right candidate about a year ago, as you all know, but I didn't say that it was over and he was going to step down before the debate. Before the debate, the great majority of the people supporting him, not the voters, and this is interesting and important. I'll come back to that in 1 second. But the elite, all the politicians, all of the media, were still, and all the donors, were all still behind him. But after the debate, and when I saw the ad against Bob Casey, I said it's definitely over. They can't withstand this, right? But now he's got nowhere left to go. We're in the checkmate portion of the program. He's down to just the king. He doesn't even have any pawns left because Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski are by far his top defenders in the press. So that's like losing your queen. And so that's gone, that's off the board. Nancy Pelosi off the board, Adam Schiff off the board, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, everyone's gone. He's lost all of his pieces. The donors are gone. Jeffrey Katzenberg, I mean, that's the person they're alluding to. One of the top donors for the Democrats of all time, the biggest supporter of Joe Biden within the donor community. He's saying we don't have any money left, just like I told you guys. I said that was set in motion 3 weeks ago because he would run out of donor money and there would be a revolt in Congress. And that's exactly what happened. And so it's not a question like soon, like within minutes, we're going to switch to who should be the new nominee. Right now, Joe Biden is definitely done. If he kept going, they're gonna have to humiliate him. They're gonna have to do it in public more. Like it would be insanity, sheer insanity to continue, and it wouldn't work anyway. So this is when you say Joe Biden had a good run, whether you believe it or not. Thank you for your service. And wow, this is exciting. We're gonna get to pick a new candidate and we're gonna have a real shot to beat Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He has literally no allies left.
And guys, I want you to consider for the rest of the country, for everyone in the country, what the two political campaigns look like, what the optics are, right? So we've been at the RNC all week. I genuinely don't believe, we'll see, right? The pro working class message, right? But at least that's the message that they're really driving home at this convention. So you have the Republican Party branding themselves as the party that's looking out for the little guy, for working class Americans. And then on the Democratic side, is there any conversation about policy right now? Of course not, because everything is wrapped up in this power struggle. And that does not look good to the American people, especially at a time when they're struggling financially, economically due to inflation and stuff like that. And so it's just a bad look for the Democrats. The longer this drags out, the more it hurts the party in general.
Yeah, guys, there's a second huge problem with him dragging it out, which is that people are starting to ask, real average Americans. Anna and I took an Uber ride today. I know it's a cliche to tell you about taxi drivers and Uber drivers, but nevertheless, they are a good indication. And he said, well, look, he's a 26-year-old guy, doesn't follow politics that much, and said, well, who's in charge of the country? Because to the average person that doesn't follow politics, when they see Joe Biden, they think he doesn't know what he's doing. He's obviously in mental decline. Like, that's the most obvious thing in the world. They don't debate it. The debate is only because the allies of Biden force you into a debate by continuing to gaslight you, right? But in the real world, there's no debate at all. Everybody thinks Joe Biden's gone, right? So then they're wondering, so who's running the place? And so that's beginning to deteriorate faith in the government, let alone the Democratic Party. But they're also thinking like the Democratic Party seems to be kind of like a little bit questionable.
Yeah, wrapped up in their own ambition, their own political ambition, as opposed to looking out for the little guy, which is what historically the Democratic Party was thought to be, right? And so the other thing that the Uber driver mentioned, which I thought was telling, is remember, he says, I don't really follow politics that closely, I don't watch the news that much, and I do think that's actually representative of most American voters.
Definitely.
And you know what he said? He said, yeah, I'm gonna vote Trump because he seems like he wants to help.
Yeah, that brother, and he admits it. He's like, I don't know any of the details, and I don't know who actually wants to help, right? He didn't say those exact words, but that was his indication. But he's like, Trump seems like he wants to help. And he hasn't heard anything from Biden or the Democrats about how they're going to help him. He said, look, rent went up by $1,000. Me and my girlfriend, we think we might not be able to afford an apartment to even rent, right? And then he interrupted our conversation when I said that Biden was bragging about how he expanded NATO, but I'm like, nobody even knows that. And he said, yeah, I don't know that. And he doesn't care. He doesn't care about expanding NATO. The brother's trying to pay for rent. The Democrats are so out of touch. But the longer they have Joe Biden as his figurehead, the more average voters are going, who's in charge of the Democratic Party anyway?
Yeah.
Are they run by some sort of secret group that we're not seeing? That's a terrible thing to show the American people. For God's sake, let's go. But it's okay. Yeah. Almost certainly by Monday, he's gone. So get ready for a new nominee.
So let's talk about some of the other indications that Biden is likely going to drop out of the race. And by the way, guys, like there's, I guess, two questions. The first question I didn't even consider because I think it's ridiculous, but the idea of him resigning from the presidency, no one's having a real conversation about that, okay? So there's very little time left in his term. He's gonna finish his term. We're talking about dropping out of the presidential race, so a more competitive candidate can go up against Donald Trump. Now, in an interview released on Wednesday on BET, Biden was asked if there was any scenario in which he would drop out of the race, and he said the following: if I had some medical condition that emerged, if doctors came to me and said, you got this problem and that problem. So it seems like there is an opening, right, where he thinks it's reasonable for him to drop out of the race. That same day, Biden was diagnosed with COVID, but obviously COVID is not something that a president or a candidate would drop out of a race from. But what is motivating Biden's alleged change of heart could be the following. So one Biden advisor who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that the decision came down to hard facts and that there were three that mattered: polling, cash, and which states are in play. And as this advisor put it, none of those are trending in the right direction for Biden. So top Democrats have been pushing Biden hard on all three of those, okay? Just bringing all of this data to his attention, telling him about how unlikely it is that he's gonna win the election or re-election. When asked if that report was true, a spokesperson for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer stated, Leader Schumer conveyed the views of his caucus. And
that means the entire Senate Democrats now think he should step aside.
Exactly. And by the way, 2/3 of Democratic voters believe that he should step aside.
Yeah, 65% on a new poll. So that goes to, somebody was saying, one of our members said, I hope I never hear the word blue MAGA again. And I understand and I appreciate that. That was Smogostus Gloop. It's a funny handle, but I appreciate you guys. Be part of the show. Hit the join button below and be one of our members. But guys, I hope I don't ever have to say that again. But the 35% that still think that Joe Biden should be the candidate, they think they're the majority because look, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but it's an alternate reality. This thing is beyond over, right? But those folks are still to this day say, no, Biden should stay on and we the voters want him. No, you want him, but the overwhelming majority of Democratic voters don't want him, let alone the general population who gets to vote in the election, right? So just be clear on what reality is. And even if you disagree with the people that are in the majority, okay? So now look, when you've lost the Senate caucus, there's nowhere to go. I mean, imagine if they come out publicly, all of the Democratic senators, which leads to the second problem. And part of what Schumer, Jeffries, et cetera, are telling Joe Biden, they're saying it's not just, they're not telling him, hey brother, we think you're in mental decline and can't handle this. They're not saying that. They're saying people now believe/realize that you're in mental decline. So we can't hide it anymore. So now the perception is such a giant problem that even if you were in great shape, which we all know you're not, right? But even if you were in great shape, you'd still lose. And you are not able to change that perception in the interviews and events that you did. We heard you out, you did all these things, and now the perception is even more dug in that you can't campaign and be president for the next 4 years. So that's why it's over. Not just because of the reality of your medical condition, but because of people's perception. The voters will not turn around. They're positive that they're not going to vote for you. So it's literally impossible for it to be clear.
Now, I also want to just quickly note that there are other members in the Democratic Party, big names like Adam Schiff calling for Biden to drop out. Also, Hakeem Jeffries spoke with Biden, and Jeffries, the minority leader, told House Democrats last week that in a visit to the White House on Thursday night, he had directly expressed the same breadth of insight, heartfelt perspectives, and conclusions about the path forward, among them to Biden. And it was also reported today that former President Barack Obama is telling his allies that he does not believe Biden can win. But there is still one prominent individual in the media who absolutely believes that Biden could still win. And maybe the real problem here is the backstabbing that's taking place by other Democrats. Let's take a look.
It's his decision to make. It seems to me that these behind the scenes meetings that should be private are being leaked intentionally to sort of force his hand. I think that's disrespectful to the president. I think it's disrespectful to the office. Even if he doesn't drop out, I think we have to understand that there's a binary choice. There is a threat, an existential threat to democracy on one side and Joe Biden on the other. Right. So he still has my vote because he has Vice President Harris right next to him, who is ready to step into the role of president. God forbid something happened to Joe Biden. So I still think, Democrats, instead of throwing Joe Biden under the bus, need to start talking more about the Republican program.
What about throwing the American people under the bus by withholding the true condition of Joe Biden from them? Attempting to essentially just hide the truth and hoping that Biden will win re-election when he needs to be out and about campaigning in order to beat Donald Trump. Like, look, this is my speculation. I could be totally wrong. I get the sense that Sunny Hostin really wants the presidential candidate to be Kamala Harris. But there is, once Biden steps down from the presidential race, there's going to be a debate among Democrats about whether Kamala should be crowned the candidate, which is the undemocratic choice, if you ask me, or if they should have an open convention where others throw their hat in the race and the delegates get to vote and decide who the best candidate is. If that happens, there is some possibility that Kamala Harris won't be the candidate. I just feel like this argument of, no, just let Biden continue running. Kamala Harris is the vice president. So God forbid if something happens to Biden, Kamala will step in.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with your speculation in a minute, and I can back up the reasoning. First, what Sunny Hostin said there was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She appears to be the last Biden dead-ended. And so, and something she said really offended me, that this is disrespectful to him and the office. No, he's being disrespectful to 65% of Democratic voters who say, brother, we're gonna lose because of you. Please step aside. We love you, but you gotta go because we gotta beat Trump. And it seems like you don't even care if we wanna beat Trump. And so it's incredibly disrespectful to the country, to democracy. I mean, you keep saying democracy is on the line, and then you wanna run an 81-year-old who 80% of Americans believe no longer has a functioning brain. So don't say harsh things like that about the president. Why? Because he's the powerful and we have to kiss his ass because he's powerful? That's not what the press is supposed to do. Isn't it amazing that the press, instead of challenging the powerful, yell at anyone who does challenge the powerful? They're like, how dare you know that you should kneel and bow down before authority? Okay, the voters don't matter. Democratic voters, we don't care about them. And how about your beloved Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer? Isn't it disrespectful to them for you to throw them under the bus? And it's obvious we're going to have a new Democratic candidate. And these guys constantly fighting it is disrespectful to their beloved Democratic leadership that has now decided it should not be Joe Biden, okay? So nothing she said made any sense at all, and it was elitist and insulting to the average person. Now, I think I had the same sense that you did. And here I'll throw our guys under the bus too, okay? And it's not really under the bus. I think that the progressives, our guys as in Bernie Sanders, et cetera, I think both the Bernie Sanders camp and the Kamala Harris camp are trying so hard to make sure they're not blamed for pushing Biden out. And they want to say, especially now the Kamala, because because the progressives always get blamed, and African-American leaders and other folks who are not African-American but want Kamala Harris, right? Don't want to seem like they did a palace coup and then their preferred candidates then gets, has that, gets attached, that
I see.
taint gets attached to them, right? And so they don't want that on Kamala Harris. What they want instead is Kamala fought for Biden to the end. And remember, the office is what's important, and she's the vice president. And you have to respect the office. It has to be Kamala Harris. I'll guarantee it to you right now, 100% prediction. Sunny Hostin, as soon as Biden steps down, says there should be no conversation, there should be no open convention, and it should be Kamala Harris shoved down everybody's throat. Otherwise, it's disrespectful to the elite and the powerful. I guarantee you she makes that argument. So I think you're totally right, and I see it in a lot of other politicians and media figures that are taking it easier on Biden because they're saying, oh my God, the team, the ticket, the office has to be respected. They're gonna all turn and say, well, there should be no democracy, no open convention, no nothing. Kamala Harris should be anointed because that's what we prefer. And that's absolutely the wrong way to do it. By the way, I think Kamala Harris can easily earn it at a convention.
I agree.
She would be the favorite at a convention. And Anna, you suggested I started watching more Kamala Harris speeches, and I did. She sounds better and better.
She does. It seems like whatever weird trance she was in during the administration where she had trouble speaking publicly has kind of gone away. And I'm happy about that because she's doing way better in her public appearances. So there is a good chance that even in an open convention, she will end up being the favorite to run against Trump.
Look, let me just be clear. First of all, even in an open convention, she'd be the favorite. No question. The vice president's definitely the favorite, right? And if she can't deliver it after being an overwhelming favorite, then she's not a strong candidate. But if she does deliver it, then the convention and the process strengthens her. Then no one can complain that she's the candidate because she earned it, and no one could take that away from her. And then she didn't just get anointed or named, because remember, Biden named her in the first place. That's how VPs work.
Right.
This would be her first opportunity to actually earn it herself, and it would give her so much more credibility. Now, by the way, Mark Halperin reporting that Biden is, this just happened, last legs, considering Kamala Harris, and apparently, if you believe his reporting, he is not going to say it should be Kamala Harris. Apparently, he's going to say open convention.
Wow.
Okay, and we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
That's Mark Halperin reporting. Okay, for what it's worth, but I would be thrilled. I would have thought that the political thing to do, and if he doesn't do this, that means he has a deep problem with Kamala Harris. That Biden would come out and say, I'm resigning, stepping down from the candidacy, I was staying the president, and I have incredible faith in Kamala Harris. And obviously I back her, but I think we should do an open convention. I think Kamala will easily win the open convention. That's the right way to do it. So you guarantee the right process, but you don't seem like you're disrespecting your own vice president. If he doesn't even say it should be Kamala and he just says it should be an open convention, wow, then he really doesn't believe in her.
Well, we'll see how this plays out, right? So because we don't know, this is based on one individual who's claiming this is how it's going to happen. We'll see how it happens, and as you guys always know, we'll give you the details as this story develops.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.